Order. Afra Brandis to move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship and to have secured this debate on such an important topic. On the 12th of November last year, a young boy left school at the end of the day, stepped into the road directly outside his school, and never returned home. This terrible accident took place in a school in my constituency of Chester South and Eddisbury. Investigations remain ongoing, and therefore I will not go into the specific details of what happened. But at the heart of this is an 11-year-old boy, a student at the nearby school and a much-loved son. He was crossing Wrexham Road, a busy arterial road into Chester, where the speed limit is 40 miles per hour. Tragically, he did not make it home that night, and I cannot imagine what his parents have gone through. It is every family's worst nightmare. And I'm incredibly grateful to his parents for meeting with me and for their work in their son's memory to do all they can to ensure no other family has to face this tragedy. This accident has shaken the community to its core. The family, friends, school and wider community, many who have voiced concerns about speeding and road safety before, are determined to make a change. But it's clear that this is not just about this tragic incident. As I noted, the investigation remains ongoing. Nor is it just about this school and this road. It is about every child's journey to and from school and the value we place on their safety and security. I've spoken to many constituents who want to see a meaningful change. I want to mention the Make Wrexham Road Safe campaign and the team from the 20s Plenty campaign who've met with me and have been so helpful in raising support and interest. Like them, I want to see long-lasting, effective changes to make roads outside of school safer. I'm also grateful to Sam Dixon, my neighbouring MP in Chester North and Neston, who met with me on this subject. In Cheshire West and Chester, there are 19 schools located on 30-mile-per-hour roads. There are 4 that have speed limits of 40 miles per hour. And shockingly, 1 located on a road with a 60-mile-per-hour speed limit. As I understand it, current legislation allows for a degree of subjectivity to speed limits and how local authorities seek to implement them. According to a Department for Transport guidance updated on the 17th of March 2024, a speed limit of 20 miles per hour may be put in place for, and I quote, major streets where there are or are likely to be significant numbers of journeys on foot and/or where pedal cycle movements are an important consideration, and this outweighs the disadvantage of longer journey times for motorised traffic. It goes on to say residential streets in cities, towns and villages, particularly where the streets are being used by people on foot and on bicycles, there is community support and the characteristics of the street are suitable. Needless to say, for every school there are significant journeys made on foot and on bicycle. Where this tragic incident occurred, on one side of the 40-mile-per-hour road is a school for children aged from 7 years up to 18. On the other side, a new residential estate that will have approximately 1,500 new homes, many of which have already been built. There are also proposals to build an additional new school to support the development. Further down the road is a nursery, all within half a mile of each other. As our housing needs have grown, developments have sprung up everywhere, and yet the surrounding roads often do not reflect their new residential setting. And so it is clear that there are a significant number of journeys on foot and on bicycle. So then the guidance asks that this outweighs the disadvantage of longer journey times for motorised traffic. In this instance, there are 15,000 people who have signed a petition who clearly believe that it does outweigh the disadvantage. The school, the Residents' Association for the Neighbouring Housing Development, Indeed, I have been inundated with correspondence from parents and residents asking me to do what I can to campaign for a speed limit reduction outside of schools. Therefore, with regards to the balance of advantage and disadvantage, I do not think anyone would mind slowing to 20 miles per hour around a school if it means children are safer. Let me be clear, I am not calling for a Welsh-style blanket 20-mile-per-hour limit, but for Wrexham Road and for the many schools, roads outside schools across the country, a reduction to 20 miles per hour seems a perfectly rational and appropriate measure. I would therefore suggest a reasonable compromise could be for local authorities to be directed to have a default 20-mile-per-hour limit outside of schools, and that it is any deviation from that, any change to increase the limit, which would need to be for a justifiable reason subject to the context of each case. The onus would become to justify greater speeds, not to have to justify why 20 miles per hour is appropriate. In doing so, we can better protect and mitigate against needless tragedies and manage speed for the good of our children outside of schools. Because as a mum with teenage children, I know that the reality is they're not always assessing risk. They're not always concentrating as we might want them to be. We know children, particularly of primary school age, can make mistakes and miscalculations when crossing roads. Sadly, sometimes we know they might be distracted by phones or friends or simply daydreaming. And of course, yes, teaching about road safety is also vital. We all remember being taught to stop, look, and listen. And I know that the local schools, including where this accident took place, and our fantastic local police have already been doing so much to try to teach and encourage children to stay safe on our roads. But we're talking about young children who can be easily distracted and may make mistakes. Reducing speed can have a huge difference to the severity of an accident involving a vehicle. There is a 2.5% chance of a fatality if a pedestrian is hit by a car travelling at 20 miles per hour. This increases drastically to a 90% chance of a fatality if a pedestrian is hit by a car travelling at 40 miles per hour. Given such a stark contrast in outcome, surely a 20-mile-per-hour limit outside schools is suitable and sensible. Add to this mix that many schools are now located in areas far busier, with many more cars and lorries using a road than that road system was ever originally designed for. Wrexham Road is a clear example of this. As mentioned earlier, significant development has taken place, and there are more people and road users living in the area than before. This road, which would have once gone through gentle Cheshire fields and farmland, is now in a major urban area. Wrexham Road leads to a business park and the main A road that joins Chester to Wrexham, and to the M53 which runs to Merseyside. We have become more reliant on cars, and the transport system has therefore changed to meet the demands of drivers. Outside of school, however, I do believe the primary focus ought to be not the thought of how swiftly can we get past, but rather the focus ought to be with the children who are at greater risk. I am fortunate to have many amazing schools in my constituency. Whilst not all of them border a large housing development or an arterial road, Chester South and Eddisbury has a very large rural community, which brings with it different kinds of challenges to mitigate against accidents outside of schools. Country lanes and roads are by nature more dangerous than roads in urban areas. They are often narrower, often have blind bends, and their condition is often worse. I think of Delamere Church of England Primary School and Eton Primary School, with a 20-mile-per-hour road directly outside the entrance, but a 60-mile-per-hour busy road adjacent that pupils will have to walk along or across. 3 schools in my constituency, Bickerton Holy Trinity Church of England Primary School, Bridgemere Church of England Primary School, and Carverley Primary Academy, all have a 60-mile-per-hour road directly outside their grounds, with just a 20 mile per hour when lights show. I don't consider this to be sufficient mitigation. We rightly encourage children to travel to and from school on bike or on foot. It's good for them and for the environment. But at present, many parents do so with trepidation and a concern that the conditions outside of school are too dangerous. I'm a mum, so I share the concerns of so many parents across Chester South and Edinburgh, and indeed the country, that their children are at greater than necessary risk when walking to school. This ought not to be the case. It is also worth noting that in many cases regarding traffic management outside schools, we in the United Kingdom are the exception. In the US and in many European countries, there are strict laws surrounding speed, including school zones, which can see speed reduced significantly. I think there are lessons that we can learn and implement that will help us reduce incidents outside of schools and reassure parents, teachers and pupils that it is safe for them to go to and from school. In my concluding remarks today, I just wanted to reiterate a point that I alluded to earlier. When considering speed, restrictions and mitigations around school, the overriding focus should be on the safety of the children. Slowing down to 20 miles per hour outside of school is such a small change to make to prevent life-changing consequences that we in Chester South and Edinburgh, sadly, know all too well about. We can and we must do more to ensure every child returns home after school. They're at the start of their lives with so much potential. Their safety is paramount, and we can do good by revising policy and rethinking speed limits for them and their families.
Can I remind members they should bob if they wish to be called in the debate, and can I ask them to limit themselves to around 4 minutes, please? Chris Vince.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your chairmanship today. And can I, in all sincerity, thank the Honourable Lady for Chester South and Edinburgh for bringing this debate to Westminster Hall today, but also her really passionate and powerful opening remarks. And I think everyone in this chamber's hearts goes out to her constituent and her constituent's family for what must have been, I mean, it's unbearable to happen. And I think, sadly, she's right to say that actually this isn't an isolated incident, and unfortunately across the country, incidents like this happen far, far too often. I want to make a reference to an incident that happened in a school in my constituency of Harlow, Pemberley Academy, on the 17th of September 2023. A car breaking the speed limit of 30 miles an hour came around a corner far too quickly. It came off the road and went straight into the perimeter fence of the school. Fortunately, that happened on a weekend. If that incident had happened on a weekday, there would have been severe casualties. That's where the parents and their children line up to get into school. Despite a petition led by the teachers at the school, signed by all the parents and the local residents, including one local councillor at the time, nothing has been done to remedy that situation. Now, this is not a political criticism at all, and actually I recognise that Essex County Council would like to be able to do more, but actually there appears to be so much red tape that means communities and community groups like those mentioned by the Honourable Lady from Chester South at Edison, it takes so long for them to make the change in their communities that they want. I do really hope that the English Devolution Bill, one of the potential benefits of that, will give power back to local communities to have a greater say on what changes they can make to actually tackle this issue. I do want to add a positive, and I want to pay tribute to the work done by Essex Fire and Rescue. The Honourable Lady mentioned, obviously, the importance of education, although she's right to say that education alone isn't everything. And, you know, we do recognise that, particularly when we're talking about primary schools, you know, young children, you know, all the will in the world, they're not always going to be completely, looking both ways and using the techniques that we've mentioned. But I would like to pay tribute to Essex Fire and Rescue for some of the work that they have been doing, working with their fire break scheme at Harlow Fire Station, where they bring in young people. They teach them how to be fire officers, but they also look at road safety as well. They've also visited Harlow College and other educational institutions in Harlow to talk about road safety education. And I would say, I think it's important that when we talk about road safety, you can never be too young, but actually you can never be too old as well. And I think sometimes we think about it's important to teach young ones, but the point that the Honourable Lady mentioned, that teenagers, older children can often be distracted as well. I welcome this debate. I welcome the ongoing conversation with the Minister and the Shadow Minister, who will be bored of me talking about this topic, because I did speak on the topic yesterday as well, to look at how we can give power back to local communities who know best how to ensure that the areas around their schools are safe. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, a pleasure to serve under your chairship. Can I particularly thank the Honourable Lady for Chester South and Eddisbury for bringing forward this issue. And I want to make a very constructive, every person's contribution will be constructive, but I want to tell the Westminster Hall today what we're doing in Northern Ireland. We're doing the very things that the Honourable Lady has asked for. It's a topical subject. It's one that I was and am a vocal supporter of the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit near schools in Northern Ireland. I've pushed for them in my own constituency, been successful in getting those schemes. But there's another project the schools have been promoting as well, and that is the Walk to Schools scheme. One of my local schools, Victoria Primary School in Newtonards, have been doing a phenomenal scheme whereby the children get points for their house team if they walk, cycle or scoot to school. And for those who have to drive, there are also points for those who park on the main road and walk a section in. This is an exciting way of getting children to incorporate exercise into their daily life and into their mindset. But the key to this has to be, are my children safe walking to their school? And parents will not consider this if there's cars zooming by at 30, 40 or indeed 50 miles an hour, as the Honourable Lady referred to. The benefits of a safe schools environment are enough to ensure that no child needlessly is injured or worse heading to school, but there are other benefits as well, and ones we need to consider. In Northern Ireland, we've managed to save £500,000 during the course of a year by families doing the school run on foot, scooter or bike instead of by car. And schools participating in the Sustrans Active School Travel Programme, which we're doing in Northern Ireland. At the end of 2023, the number of children travelling actively to participating schools increased from 30% to 42%. The number of pupils being driven to school fell from 60 down to 47. And the number of children completing physical activity for at least 60 minutes each day increased from 29 to 46. So this is not just a road safety issue, it's an educational thing as well. I'm very pleased to see the Minister in place, and I understand the Minister always comes back with positive responses to our requests. This is a contribution because it's a devolved matter, but I understand what I'm trying to put forward is what we're doing in Northern Ireland as a suggestion for what needs to be done to back up the Honourable Lady who has put this forward. My colleague Michelle McElveen, who is the MLA in her position as Infrastructure Minister, has played a massive part in this scheme, and she and I represent the same constituency in different places, and her in the Assembly and myself here. A vehicle travelling at 20 miles an hour would stop in time to avoid a child running out 3 car lengths in front. The same vehicle travelling at 25 miles an hour would hit the child at 18 miles an hour. This is roughly the same impact as a child falling from an upstairs window from the top of there down to the ground, probably most cases concrete. The greater the impact speed, the greater the chance of death. But deaths in hit at 30 miles an hour has a very significant 1 in 5 chance of being killed. If it was up to 35, it's 1 in 3. The point I'm making is, the lesser the speed, then the more chance of surviving. We need to ensure that safety is paramount, and when we can, encourage more people to consider not driving to school, but better for the environment, better physically, and better for their wee minds. And ultimately, the Honourable Lady has put forward the case, I believe, to make it safer for children outside schools. I support her. I wish her well in the campaign. I look very much forward to the Minister and her contribution, and indeed to the Shadow Minister as well. Thank you very much.
Tristan Osborne.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And can I also thank the member opposite for tabling this debate. It's such an important topic and one which has a cross-country significance in terms of the data on this. And she gave very powerful testimony about her own constituent and the family impacts. And I can tell you that that is replicated for many of us across our constituencies. It's deeply depressing that, according to the Department for Transport Statistics, 14% of child fatalities on Great Britain's roads occur during the morning school run between 7 and 9 o'clock in the morning, and 23% happened after the school period between 3 and 5 p.m. Okay, and even insurance companies now are taking that into account, with a 43% reduction in road collisions during the school holiday. So we know that this is a significant factor in terms of the constituent impact. I'm a former teacher, and I know from when I visited the schools in my constituency, from St Catherine's in Snodlands to Aylesford School to Walderslade Grammar School, all of these schools have expressed through their school voice, their youth voice, concern around getting to school and some of the dangers associated with that. And whilst my honourable colleague here has mentioned about safety, there is actually concerns more broadly around the school run, and I want to talk briefly about that, but also some of the solutions that my council has looked at. So you're absolutely correct. Speed is a concern around schools, and wholly endorse the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. We see that in Medway across many of our urban schools, and we've seen a significant reduction in accidents there. However, it isn't just about speeding. It's also about the conduct of parents when they're picking up their children, and also how they're dropping them off. It appears in some cases that some of the conduct we're seeing by those that are picking up their children is below that would be expected in any other situation, and that has led to other safety concerns about mounting the pavements, about some of the aggression shown towards staff in many of these schools, as well as parking assistance sent to resolve the issue. And that is, again, an increasing concern, as well as the amount of pollution that is outside schools. So Medway has looked at a couple of schemes actually introduced under the previous government around the Safer Streets initiative, and they won £300,000 to introduce a school streets initiative. And this initiative hasn't been mentioned today, but in short, it restricts access to school streets completely during pick-up and drop-off time by using ANPR camera technologies. And this completely reduces the amount of traffic volume on a street to only the residents and businesses using that street. It dramatically improves road safety, and it reduces pollution and encourages active transport. So it serves as a real boon to getting kids from the car into a more active transport mode. Very happy to give way, yes.
Thank you, Ms Jardine, and may I also commend the Honourable Lady from Chester South for her work on this very important issue, and offer my condolences to the family. My honourable friend from Kent is making an excellent point, and there are a number of examples of these schemes around the country. There are several in Reading, and we've certainly benefited from exactly this type of measure. However, what I would suggest gently is that the wider area needs to be considered, and there can sometimes be a build-up of traffic on the edge of the school street zone. So often my experience is that integrating them with other measures, so in some of the Reading examples that were within a 20-mile-an-hour zone, that can also help both to reduce the risk of accidents and also to reduce pollution. And I wondered if he would agree with that point.
Thank you, and can I thank the contribution from my honourable friend, and I absolutely agree. In fact, that was the next part of the School Street programme, was actually increasing awareness and education within schools to ensure that they're aware that this isn't just moving traffic to somewhere else, that actually this is part of an active transport strategy. And so Medway has introduced that initiative, which has worked very well amongst 12 primary schools, and Kent County Council have introduced a similar scheme to promote education, cycling cycling awareness and other types of programmes with high visibility, key fobs and other types of costume for them to wear. So again, increasing education is critical. This is a really important issue for many of those schools, and I've been doing work with schools in my constituency to promote their knowledge and awareness of school streets so that they can actually apply to the council and ask for them. So if I can ask the Minister if she could make that some of those examples and case studies of school streets more widely known about, and encourage our local councils to pursue that agenda so that we can actually see a significant reduction. And can I ask also the Minister if she would be keen to promote the ideas of many of our leading councils around the country around education and cycling provision as well, to ensure that our children are not always getting in the car when they need to get to school every morning, and some of the benefits of these programmes. Thank you.
Richard Ford.
Thank you, Ms Jardine, and it is an honour to serve with you in the chair. And I'd like to pay tribute to the Honourable Member for Chester South and Edisbury, not just for securing this debate, but for speaking very powerfully and sensitively on this very delicate subject. My condolences also to the family who she represents. If only that were unique, it is not. The incident that she described is sadly multiplied many times across the country. According to the charity Break, there are 5 children who are seriously injured or are killed on British roads, UK roads, every day. In the southwest of England, there are 442 children who are injured on roads near schools in the southwest in just 1 year, a situation which is utterly unacceptable. And I want to use my limited time today to talk about prevention. And one town, Ottery St Mary, that I represent, where a small intervention, both in terms of infrastructure but also regulation, could help prevent accidents and awful consequences in the future. In Ottery St Mary, there is a pedestrian bridge, Coleridge Bridge, where school children, many of them, are able to avoid the roads and cross a river. At least they could, until last year a tree blew onto the bridge, making it impassable for pedestrians. I looked into it and discovered that one reason why the repair work on this pedestrian bridge was so very slow was because of environmental permitting regulations, where priority is being given for the salmon spawning season on the River Otter over the safety of children going to, on and from school. And I appreciate that the Minister today is answering for the Department for Transport and not for DEFRA, but she should perhaps know that I've written to DEFRA about this and had a most unsatisfactory reply from DEFRA about the environmental permitting regulations. I'm seeking an exception for the for such things as salmon spawning, an exception for the environmental permitting regulations when there is safety of children and vulnerable people at stake. The case of the Coleridge Bridge is just one example of where a rigid policy designed for another public policy imperative is having unintended but very serious consequences for public safety. As one Ottery resident put it to me in an email, do we have to wait for there to be a serious incident involving a child or an elderly resident for prompt action? It's been over a year, I understand. No work will begin until at least next summer. And I would urge, given that local authority, Devon County Council, has the money and is ready to do the work, that we in this place do our job to make environmental permitting regulations more flexible to look after the safety of young people. Thank you.
Joe Morris.
Serve under your chairship for the second time in the afternoon, and can I congratulate the Honourable Lady for securing this really, really important debate on road safety around schools. It's an issue that comes across my mailbox pretty regularly. I've already raised the safety of children travelling to and from school in a debate on school transport in this place once before. Every child in Northumberland deserves access, safe access to the best education. No child's safety should ever be jeopardised in the process of achieving that. Now, from Queen Elizabeth High School in Hexham to Haydenbridge High School, Holtwhistle Primary Academy, Seal First School and Darraswell Primary School, every child in my constituency and beyond travelling to and from and around school should be safe. And yet between 2019 and 23, 1,414 young pedestrians and cyclists in the North East were injured. Of those, 286 were seriously injured and 6 were fatally injured. There's one particular situation that I'd like to use my time to just highlight. On Callerton Lane in Ponteland, there are 3 schools situated on the road: Ponteland High School, Ponteland Primary School and Henry's Hut Preschool. Insufficient signage on Callerton Lane to indicate the school zone, not only of 1 school but 3, continues to jeopardise the safety of students, teachers, parents and local residents. I'm sure every single member here today on every single side can agree that traffic calming measures, better road surfaces and clear signage should be one of the greatest priorities in local areas. And in rural regions with a higher rate of car ownership, better signage and road conditions are even more pressing. Conducting speed surveys is a necessary first step, but as is the case for Callerton Lane, these must be performed in the correct place and in the correct manner to ensure complete accuracy. I've urged and continue to urge Northumberland County Council to reconduct some of the speed surveys around Callerton Lane to achieve total accuracy in determining accurate speed limits for the local schools at Ponteland. Road safety education is just as important as improving road safety around schools. Children should receive a comprehensive education to improve road awareness. I want to acknowledge the vital work of Road Safety GB North East and their new campaign to improve awareness around road and traffic safety for young people. I'm very pleased to see the pledge to fix 1 million potholes, which will deliver vital funding to improve our roads and improve some school, elements of the travel journey to and from school. And through those local campaigns to raise awareness, urgent attention to the condition of our roads already pledged by this government and improvement to the signage around schools, our young people can receive the safety, security that they need and deserve. I'd also like to very briefly highlight one of my constituents, Rory, who wrote to me very concerned about road safety on his street near his first school after his garden wall was knocked over by an Asda van. And I'll be writing to his local council to ask that signage on his street is improved. Thank you, Chair.
Johnson.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, Mrs Jardine, and can I congratulate the Honourable Member for Chester South and Edisbury for securing this very important debate and for her excellent contribution. One key aspect of road safety at schools is around drop-off and pick-up time, as my honourable friend has mentioned. It's an issue where I took action previously as a councillor and continue to take action as an MP, working with fellow councillors, the local authority, the school leadership, police and residents at a school called Oakfield Primary Academy, where there have been problems, the like of which have been alluded to. In Warwickshire, Eastlands Primary School in my constituency was the site of a county council school street pilot scheme. Prior to this, there was what the council described as inconsiderate parking, congestion, and sometimes complete gridlock and a threat to safety. It is, of course, as I'm sure we can all agree, a perennial problem, but the school street approach, that's already been mentioned, can help. In the case of this pilot scheme, restrictions were introduced using a traffic order. 2 park and stride car parks gave parents alternative places to park, and a new school crossing patrol on a busy road was implemented, and this all helped. My experience in this space leads to some observations that perhaps the Minister will consider. There are far more people driving their children to school than ever before. There may be things that can be done around more public transport, safer cycle paths and more active lifestyles around walking, which is of course relevant to government priorities regarding the NHS and transport in the long term. Some schools are within tightly packed residential streets, and this can't be overcome in the short, medium or perhaps even long term. More children are attending schools away from their home address, either through parental choice or local authority allocation, and that can have an effect because there are more journeys being taken, and so perhaps more work can be done around capacity. Council enforcement can only be done when there are traffic regulation orders in place, which can only be created when a proper survey has taken place. And then again, of course, resources will be an issue. And police, who the public often turn to, and I've spoken to about this, can only enforce in some cases and will never, with the best will in the world, be able to enforce in this matter regularly. It's therefore vital that a partnership approach is used, which is what I've tried to do, whereby the school leadership liaises with parents and educates students. Local residents are involved in discussions so that their frustrations are heard, and I have liaised with them. The council and local councillors are aware and active, and police are kept informed. In the case of Oakfield Primary, in my constituency, I encouraged a local business, Cemex, to pay for cartoon signs, I'm sure we've all seen them around schools, designed to prevent people parking on grass verges or the curbs near the school, and that has helped as well. More broadly, schools can consider other innovative options, such as arranging for students in some areas to walk to school. However, I'm acutely aware that we need to not burden or overburden hard-pressed teachers with additional responsibilities. They're already, quite understandably, reluctant to become quasi-traffic enforcement officers when dealing with people who are, after all, the parents of their students. I therefore welcome this government's renewed guidance helping councils to deliver school streets that will work, and that they will work with schools and local communities. I also commend the government's Active Travel England agency for recently releasing guidance to local authorities to help them implement school streets. I think this is really important work. So in conclusion, Mrs. Jardine, there is no panacea, sadly, but more definitely can be done, and I'm glad that Warwickshire County Council, working with local borough councils, hopes to introduce more school street schemes focusing on primary schools. And I think that those schemes really can have a profound effect on both improving the health of young people, reducing the risk of disagreements between parents and the local residents, and most importantly of all, making our schools much safer for our young people.
Mr McNay, if you'd like to make some remarks, as long as we have to move on to front bench at 8 minutes past.
Thank you, Chair. I very much appreciate your chairship and allowing me to speak, given that I was late to the debate, and thank you to the Honourable Member opposite for securing this. So I wasn't prepared to speak, so I'll just make some broad points. I acknowledge everything that's been said here today, and just to pick up on a few issues. So in my constituency of Rosendale and Darwin, virtually all the primary schools are on main roads, are on key trunk roads, which are unfortunately therefore makes it very, very difficult to consider school street schemes, where big wagons and people rushing to work are passing continually. And whilst each one might have a 20-mile-an-hour zone outside during those school times, that is regularly and repeatedly ignored. And without enforcement, without a recognition there are consequences for people's actions, it seems we'll just have continual close calls in and around those schools. So one of the things that I will ask the Minister, and I've asked the Minister before, is the extent to which we should be driving for the adoption of average speed cameras around primary schools as a way of embedding enforcement in the area around schools like mine on those main roads. And then just to touch on the point made by a couple of members opposite around the need not to wait until people are killed or injured before we actually act. Far, far too often, local people, when they raise as my honourable friend here has done, a clear risk, a clear threat, where anyone within the constituency, anyone around will know an accident is just waiting to happen. And yet they are told we have to wait for someone to be killed or injured before we act. It is ridiculous, it is outmoded, it does not meet international best practice, and we have to move to a community-led, risk-based approach which looks to prevent and predict accidents rather than respond and react. Thank you.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Vera Hobhouse.
Thank you, Ms Jardine. And first of all, I want to congratulate the Honourable Lady for Chester South and Edinburgh for bringing this very important debate to the floor of this chamber. She spoke very powerfully that our road safety has to be children-centred. And I agree with her that 20-mile-per-hour zones around schools should be actually the default position, and any council would have to make an application why it shouldn't. We have heard today, Ms Jardine, from the members of Harlow, Strangford, Chatham and Ainsworth, Honiton and Sidmouth, Wrexham, Hexham, Rugby, Rossendale and Darwin. I hope I got all your constituencies correct. All of the honourable members brought heartbreaking stories and also very sensible suggestions of how we can actually make roads safer for children around schools. Road traffic accidents devastate families and communities. Too many children are being killed or injured where they should be safest. Every death is a tragedy, but not inevitable. While there has been a reduction of road fatalities in recent decades, particularly for children, there is still much more we can do. Over the past 6 years, an average of 1,190 children have been injured each month within 500 metres of their school. A third of road fatalities are caused by speeding. Bath Community Speech was in my constituency. A bunch of highly dedicated and motivated people who stand for hours in all weathers have caught over 80,000 speeding vehicles. These volunteers do truly life-saving work towards reducing speed and dangerous collisions in Bath. And I talk to them, and yes, as we've heard already today, often they get abused for doing a job that actually saves lives. Speeding kills. Better enforcement of existing laws has been central to reducing death on our roads. And I was surprised to learn that almost half of traffic accidents occur between 3 and 6 o'clock in the afternoon when children have already finished school. Bath Community Speed Watch is therefore doing a very, very important job. They are also going into schools and educating young children of how to keep safe. And yes, I wish the children then take home the message that the most dangerous thing is speeding cars. And the most dangerous thing is sometimes the way parents behave outside schools, something that I have never understood in all my life as being a parent or being a councillor or now being an MP. Families need to be less reliant on the car. However, far too many people do not have any alternatives for car travel, and that is because we don't have enough good bus services. Many of my young constituents have to rely on very, very bad bus services. So all of these things are linked. And young people don't really bicycle enough. Why? Because they don't get adequate bicycle training. We have got schemes like Bikeability, but their funding isn't. I fear I don't really have time, but I'm sure he would make an excellent point. Bikeability is such an important scheme that we should all support, but the funding from the Department of Transport is currently not secure. Miss Jardine, Madam Chair, on average 9 young children are being harmed on our roads every single day. 3,402 children aged 7 and under were killed or injured on roads in Britain in 2022. There are many brilliant projects and there are many dedicated people who really want to make a difference, but we need to do a lot more. And can I repeat what the Honourable Member for Chester South and Edinburgh have said? We need to create road safety that is centred entirely around children. They are the most vulnerable. They are the future generation. We cannot afford to see all those thousands of young people injured and killed on our roads. 2025 should be a year when we make a big difference about this. Thank you.
Opposition spokesperson Greg Smith.
Thank you, Mrs Jardine. A pleasure again for the second time this afternoon to serve under your chairmanship, and can I thank and congratulate my honourable friend for Chester South and Edinburgh for securing this important debate, for the powerful speech she gave, and can I add my condolences to the family of her constituent who so tragically died outside their school. Road safety is something that we have to take incredibly seriously. This is the second debate in Westminster Hall this week on the subject of road safety, and I equally thank all honourable and right honourable members that have spoken in the debate powerfully this afternoon. One death on the roads is one death too many, and it is particularly painful when the life lost is that of a child who had so much in front of them, a whole life to live with, as my honourable friend said, in each and every one of them, so much potential. The risk profile in such accidents involving a child is clearly self-evidently higher, and the impact on the lives of those around them unimaginable. I don't think any of us, unless any member has been in that place, can imagine the pain and the horror and the emotional roller coaster that people will go through in that nightmare scenario. And it is of no solace whatsoever to those families who have lost a loved one, but I think it is important to reflect that there has been some significant progress in the right direction in recent years and decades. It is welcome that the rate of child pedestrians killed or seriously injured has fallen by nearly 41% since 2010. That is not to say that there is anything good about those that clearly did lose their lives. Every life, as I say, is lost is an absolute tragedy. But that decrease does show that there is a trajectory, a direction of travel that is indeed a positive one. We need to get it to zero, but we're not in a place, which is the central point I'm making, where the statistics are going up or that the problem is becoming worse. That is not to say that there isn't a lot still to do. And for child cyclists, the rate of those killed or seriously injured has also decreased by 43% since 2010. More broadly, these improvements across all road categories mean the UK remains actually a world leader in road safety. Again, more to do, but the UK is a leader in road safety. According to the Department for Transport's own figures released in September last year, Great Britain ranked third out of 33 countries in 2023 for the lowest number of road fatalities per million of the population. And that progress is reflected in child pedestrian fatalities, which have thankfully fallen from regularly exceeding 100 fatalities a year to now consistently being in the 20s. 20 too many, but that is a significant decrease. However, challenges clearly remain. Data from the department equally demonstrates that boys up to the age of 11 are twice as likely to be killed or seriously injured as pedestrian girls of the same age. Among those aged 12 to 15, boys are still 33% more likely. And I would like to ask the Minister, when she winds up this debate, what discussion she has had with local authorities, schools and the Department for Education, not just about how we solve the overall problem of improving road safety around schools, but effective approaches to reduce this particular disparity. Our focus has to be on making every possible move to improve road safety around schools. It's something that is very much on my own mind in my constituency, an entirely rural constituency, through a slightly different lens, but one that makes the point well. I proposed anaerobic digester in one village that seeks to bring hundreds of additional HGV movements past schools such as those in Long Crendon and Oakley. And it focuses the minds to think just how close so many of our schools, particularly in rural villages, are to those fast-moving lanes, those fast-moving major routes that people use on a daily basis, and to add that additional danger of those incredibly heavy goods vehicles to those roads is something that focuses the mind even more. I'm very sympathetic to the ideas that my honourable friend and others have mentioned around specific speed limits in the vicinity of schools. That is always and has to be a decision taken locally by local authorities. I don't think it is something there will definitely be a one-size-fits-all for every single circumstance that central government should dictate. But it is for central government to ensure that the framework is there to make it easy for local authorities to be able to put in place such speed limits where they wish to do so, and indeed put in place effective enforcement mechanisms, because it is all too often the case in my own constituency, and I dare say everybody else's, that where a community comes forward and says they want a particular change to road safety measures, a change in the speed limit to 20 miles per hour or whatever it might be, the hoops they have to jump through are so considerable and so difficult and involving so many different agencies, that frustration sets in and in too many cases nothing ever happens, or something a little bit half-hearted happens. And so I would encourage the Minister to look at what can be done to ensure local authorities, when taking those decisions on behalf of communities that want those changes, are able to do so easily, are able to do so without the heavy-handed bureaucracy that too often goes with all of these schemes, and in particular to ensure that schools themselves can go to their local authorities and get those changes made quickly. I conclude, Mrs Jardine, by saying once more that I congratulate my honourable friend for bringing this debate, and I hope it prompts real and significant action from the government.
Minister Lillian Greenwood, please.
Thank you, Ms Jardine. It's a pleasure to serve with you in the chair. I'd like to congratulate the Honourable Member for Chester South and Edisbury on securing this debate, and thank her for raising the vitally important issue of road safety around schools. She spoke powerfully and movingly on behalf of her constituents. I thank her for sharing the devastating story of the fatal collision outside the King's School in her constituency. My sympathies go out to the family of the young person who lost his life, and of course his friends, everyone at the school and in the wider community. And I know that my honourable friend for Chester North and Neston, who's here today, has also met with the family who are her constituents and is working with them and with her neighbour cross-party. It's wonderful to see, to ensure that local partners work together to improve road safety on the Wrexham Road. I too have met many families who have tragic stories of loved ones killed and seriously injured in road traffic collisions. This is a position no family should find themselves in. Every death on our roads could and should be avoided. Every child has the right to feel safe on their journey, or to be safe on their journey to and from school, and parents should know that they will come home safely every day. That's why improving road safety, including the safety of children, is one of my department's highest priorities, and we intend to act to prevent road deaths and serious injuries. Now, a number of honourable members talked about action to reduce speed, including lower speed limits and to enforce speed limits in ways including through speed cameras. The enforcement of road traffic law and how available police resources are deployed is, of course, the responsibility of individual chief constables and police and crime commissioners, taking into account specific local problems and demands with which they're faced. And local government is the main delivery body of road safety. Local authorities have a statutory duty under Section 39 of the 1988 Road Traffic Act to take steps both to reduce and prevent collisions. And when it comes to speed, local authorities have the power to set speed limits on their roads, including 20-mile-an-hour limits and 20-mile-an-hour zones. It's for them to determine what measures are appropriate in individual cases, as they have the local knowledge of their roads. But any authority which wishes to install such schemes has my department's full backing. Now, I understand that resources for local authorities are finite, and it's right that they focus on the areas of highest risk, which may be where fatal collisions have occurred. But there is nothing to stop them implementing road safety measures elsewhere, including places where local communities have raised concerns or where there have been near misses. And rightly, my honourable friends for Harlow and Rossendale and Darwin highlighted that point. Local authorities also have the tools to improve safety outside schools. These include reducing speed limits, traffic calming and introduction of a school street where appropriate. And I welcome the support expressed by honourable members today and agree that sharing good practice can be very helpful, and I will certainly look at what more my department can do, perhaps with the LGA and others. Obviously, local councils want to make those decisions about local implementation in consultation with local communities and the local police. They know their roads best, and I simply cannot and should not dictate to them from Westminster. But the honourable member for Chester South and Edisbury made a powerful case for lower speed limits outside schools, and both she and the honourable member for Strangford noted that children, we all make mistakes, and collisions at higher speeds are much more likely to have tragic outcomes. So I agree that partnerships are essential, that they should be looking at local level interventions to make our roads safer, whilst local authorities are free to make their own decisions about the design of streets under their care, provided they take account of the relevant legislation and guidance. They are rightly accountable to local people for those decisions. And the department will look at what more we can do to support them, and we stand ready to work with all those working to improve road safety at a local level. Now, for the tragic collision involving my honourable friend's young constituent, the department is aware that Cheshire West and Chester Council have already indicated that they've commissioned an independent review of Wrexham Road close to King's School, and I'm sure that they will listen to today's debate and take note of the community's petition. But let me turn to some of the wider issues around road safety and schools. This government is setting its sights high on active travel, whether that means walking, wheeling or cycling. We're committed to promoting greener journeys, no matter how people choose to travel. It's key to improving public health. By preventing illness rather than just treating it, we can make a real difference. The biggest gains come from helping inactive people to get moving, and that's why we're focused on breaking down barriers to people who need it most, who don't have options: older people, disabled people and children. And for children, early habits matter. That's why in November 2024, Active Travel England and the department published School Streets Guidance. As honourable members have noted, these schemes don't just make school runs safer, they build lifelong habits of active travel. I'm afraid I'm not going to, just because I'm so short of time. I'd also like to turn to the role of education. Alongside delivering paid behaviour change campaigns to support a lifelong learning approach to road safety education, Think has a suite of road safety teaching resources for children of all different ages. And in response to road casualty data, which shows that the number of child pedestrian casualties doubles between the ages of 9 and 11, no doubt when they're first being allowed to walk to school on their own. And as my honourable friend for Chatham and Aylesford noted, with incidents more likely to happen during school drop-off and pick-up times. Now, following research with parents, the 2024 Think Safe Adventures influencer-led campaign aims to encourage parents across the country to help their children adopt safe road behaviours as they prepare for that independent travel, often when they move to secondary school. And I very much agree with my honourable friends for Chatham and Aylesford and Rugby about the importance of parents also behaving safely when they are dropping children off at school. And I'm sure all of us have seen some dangerous behaviours in that regard. Now, the activity I've just described from Think focuses on the top 3 risky behaviours based on the top contributory factors assigned to child pedestrian casualties. Those include failing to look and distractions, finding a safe place to cross and being in a hurry. And I'd also like to draw attention to our Think resources. There's the popular Tales of the Road resource. It's an interactive PDF, downloadable and printable, aimed at children aged 3 to 12, which conveys information about how to cross the road safely, the Green Cross Code, and includes level crossing advice from National Rail. And I was pleased to hear about other local education programmes, including that highlighted by my honourable friend for Hexham. Ms Jardine, as I said earlier, I have heard too many heartbreaking stories of loss and serious injury, including those raised today. I want to assure honourable members that the government treats road safety with the utmost seriousness, and we are committed to reducing the numbers of those killed and injured on our roads. And that's why the department is developing our road safety strategy, the first in over a decade, and we will set out more details in due course. But I thank all honourable members who've participated today. Even if I haven't had a chance to take interventions or respond directly, all of your ideas and suggestions will help to inform our thinking. It's clear that there is a real appetite for change. People want safer roads, and I'd be very pleased to keep in touch with the honourable member for Chester South and Edisbury and for other members, and I congratulate her again for securing today's important debate.
The question is that this House has considered road safety around schools. As many are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Order, order. The sitting stands adjourned.